Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is Grand Arena, penultimate match of Season 35. Back from traveling, so these videos got delayed, but we are cranking these out prior to the start of Season 36. With the loss from the first round, I am still somehow holding on to Kyber 2, but that's going to change with a loss. But I think it's a testament to how well I've been performing despite the uphill battle that I've had to deal with to still be in Kyber 2 after what I have been facing. I didn't capture footage of how exactly the end board looked, but here is what it looked like before he attacked, and here is the final banner total and the results from the defense. We got a couple holds, but not reflecting the amount that I needed in order to win, because I needed far more attempts to get through his defense. We got Grievous here getting held up by my Qui-Gon Jinn. The rest of these being one-shots. Not nearly enough support. But strategically, to survive in Kyber 2, I have to go pretty heavy on offense, so my defense is very soft. But it's really I need to be much more aggressive in my attacks, and that's something that I'll probably be changing in the future if I continue playing this way as I unlock more GLs. Now my opponent is Sony Show. He is a 5 GL player. He has the most Omicrons in the bracket, technically tied for the most. So we need to pay attention to that. Looks to be a pretty serious player. Relic units is pretty good. He's got some advantages there. He is shallower with the depth, but not at a level that is going to be too meaningful. Now with the mods, here's where I have a little bit of help. So he's got more than me, but the quality of them is significantly weaker. He's got some of the weakest mods in the entire bracket. So the top 25 of only plus 24.8. That'd be fine for Kyber 3 and Kyber 2. That's pretty soft. Top 500 of only plus 13.6. Then we look at the counts. He's pretty low on the counts as well. So I'm not looking or expecting his roster to be that particularly well modded. His datacrons, these numbers aren't relevant here because I'm recording this after the start of the next conquest and really a day or two before the start of the next Grand Arena season, so this stuff has changed, which is why you see a Jabba unlocked here. I am not a 3 GL player, I am a 2 GL player in this Kyber bracket. That's where I was at lock-in. But I was working on Jabba, so we do have a lot of the Jabba requirements at a relic level. He does not have Lord Vader, that's the most notable thing, but he has every other GL, or every other older GL, so no Jabba, no Lord Vader. With the Omicrons, when he has 15, there are going to be some good Omicrons applied, but what he's missing is the Savage Army, which that's completely usable at lower levels, just it's not going to perform at the same points and the counter as high, but it's going to you can still go up against a lot of weaker squads, weaker defenses. And so some of the Omicron concentration is where I'd spread some of that out. Like, I don't think Melgus needs to have all 3 Omnis, and I'm kind of surprised that he has 15 Omicrons applied, but only 1 on Starkiller. That makes me wonder where some of those other Omicrons have been applied. It looks like 3 of them are on Swolo down here. But I forget how he played this, so we'll see how I approach. I don't remember this match anymore. It's been a week. No relics on Melgus. He has a weak Echo. This is where you see that lack of depth is showing up. So his Moff Gideon is weaker, his Echo is weaker, his Maul is weaker, but he does put a lot of concentration on his higher quality characters. Profundity is good. He's got a 7-star Profundity. We'll take a look at the speeds now and the hotbot. Okay, with this hotbot here, the key information, undersizes and clears. This is pretty solid here, so we're going to need to be careful. He's a serious player. He's going to be engaged. As we progress through this, you saw some of this information. So he actually had fewer relics at the time of lock-in. This hotbot information is from closer to when we played, so you can see some differences already with how his roster looks. The mod analysis we looked at, the relic distribution, this is a little scarier. So if you compare it to like the last match, that opponent had fewer relic 7s, about the same amount of relic 5s, but this guy also has a lot of relic 6s. So he's a little bit more top heavy, and that was kind of reflected in his mod quality, how I was expecting. He tends to focus a lot on the top of his roster. The rest of his roster is where a lot more of the weaknesses appear. Now, with the rest, he's going to have advantages here. Looks like I had Jabba unlocked by the time of the second match, but he's obviously not active for this match. He's got speed advantages on a number of characters. His Maul, though, is kind of glaring at only Relic 10 and slow. And then that's how ships look. So the quick look at his roster to give us an idea of that modding depth. Looking at his 300 plus speed characters, his Shock T is where it ends. It's only 13. That is super shallow. That is one of the shallowest we've seen. Pretty surprising for a Kyber 2 player. You can see he already attacked first. And I don't think he really had any issues. One shots there. Yeah, and he makes quick work of my defense, and you can see that's reflected in the banner count. Now, this is what we got to deal with here. We got Raddus, we got Nute. We're looking at Poe, Finn, Geos. That's a weak wall. Down below, we have JTR, Bossk, Qui-Gon, Phasma, Dash. That's all pretty manageable. That's a soft defense. I think he's going to have some things on the back wall, but this is the type of defense that we hope we can match this opponent, except with that high banner count, it looks like he did a lot of solos and undersizes. So up against Qui-Gon here, I'm going to do 5th Brother with an 8th Brother Datacron. That has been working well for me, I think, this entire 3v3 season. I think we tried in week 1, 7th Sister and 9th Sister paired with it, and it didn't really do anything. And we've been doing very well since. It might be the Datacron, it might not be this combination of characters. We might lose one of these guys, either 2nd or 8th, but this has been working. It's a little risky, but we had damage immunity up, so I went with it. Just depended on where Anakin was on his cooldowns. But you can see, even with all that, not too much damage is being applied. But we lose a couple banners on losing 2nd Sister. But she's a Relic 5 because she's not needed for the Reva mission. Now I'm trying to make some choices. I don't want to slip up like I usually tend to, where I don't want to take risks, but I might do it anyway. I don't remember how this match went. Alright, so we're doing JKR, which is a sensible counter up against Dash. Throwing on a Datacron for the boosted stats. It looks like I'm going with Tenacity and what was that, Potency, which makes some sense. And we're going right after Dash and eliminate him because he is the scary one here. And that's quick and safe. Now we're looking at things. I'm probably going to do a solo on that Phasma. That's a weak Phasma. Yeah, so what am I gonna do? I'm gonna do a Savage. Oh, I'm doing a Malak. Okay, sure. We don't need to do this revive one. I guess I'm doing it anyway. Well, I think we're going to do a number of solos in this match. Oh, I think I remember what happened in this match. Jawas may have gotten involved at some point. Because this is a soft defense. It's the type of thing where I'm going to want to do a number of undersizes and solos. And there it goes. Now, Bossk, JTR, these are older comps where we don't need to be too concerned about them. Just depends on how I play it. And since I was traveling during this, I did not make a lot of plans. I just kind of went in blind and let the dominoes fall. Just looking for some stats. Don't even know what I want. Crit avoidance and health, sure. So I'm deciding who I want to attack, and I decide for Bossk because he's going to taunt eventually, and then I'm just going to be forced into dealing with him. So if we can just eliminate him early, then he becomes a non-issue. And so that's how that worked out how I thought it would. Had I went after Boba Fett first, we would have just slowed down my progress because the taunt would have forced us into dealing with Bossk, and then we would have had to switch back to Boba Fett. This is the type of counter that you haven't seen me use too much recently, just because of how many GLs we've had to face. I haven't been able to split my JKL from my JML too often. Now JTR here. Looks like I'm going with my own, but did I play it right? So I just fell into the habit of stealthing everyone but Swolo and keeping Swolo out in the open, but I could just as easily go with JTR, putting the foresight on her and putting Swolo under stealth, and I think that's actually would be the better way to do it. Because JTR would be putting foresight up all the time, which would be annoying. She's a tank, and having Swolo be the focus of all the control is kind of counter to what he's good at, because he can ignore taunt, he's landing big attacks, him getting cooldown reduction or stuns or ability blocks mutes his impact. And really, I think I should have gone for R2 that attack. But BB-8's a little more annoying to me. So that goes well. We very quickly took down that first wall, did it efficiently with some undersizes, made up some banners, hopefully. Now we got Maul, Grievous, we got some things we're looking at here. Now I just got to decide how I'm going to play the rest of this. Let me move my head for a second so you can see. Yeah. Okay, so that's the new team. So we got Hutt Cartel here. Hutt Cartel up against Separatists usually just works great for me. The dog wants to be picked up, but isn't letting me pick him up. So that's what you see me spinning around for. Now I should focus on Dooku. Do I do that? Yeah. Okay, that goes great. Jango's the only one who's a little annoying here. Just let me pick you up. What are you doing? Come here. Probably hear the tip taps of his feet. I need a rug is what I need. I need a rug. Jango, I think what I needed to have done, and what I've done it before because I've beaten that before. I just need to throw more thermals on Jango, and I wasn't expecting Jango to do what he did. And that was a big misplay. And that misplay there is going to cost me this match because I needed to go perfect to have a shot on banners, and even with a bunch of solos, I'm not going to make up that loss of banners. This is going to be quick and easy. This is a really weak defensive team. See, the thing is with the Hutt Cartel, I'm like nearly 100% using that. The only times I've lost has been up against Asajj because she will dispel all the buffs, like the taunt and the stealth and all that. Hutt's favor, whatever that is on Lando. Or I've lost with Watt because Watt and his the offensive tech will mess up how Chrysanthemum works. But Jango I haven't had issues with. I think I got overconfident and wasn't paying enough attention, and then didn't expect him to take me out like he did. Because you can just watch the last video, I think that had a Jango, and I made quick work of it. Talon maybe wasn't necessary, but I brought her in for just the security, the stat boost. Because I can't really take another loss. Now, I could have done something safer than the Hutt Cartel, but I felt like that. But based on my history of playing them, I thought that was pretty safe. But I could have gone safer. Wampa, quick work. We'll do the dot Datacron. This one works great with him. There's no Starkiller around for me to do it. I think the next match is when I do Wampa versus Starkiller again, and I use the tenacity. You would have had to have watched the last video to know what I'm referring to. But Wampa versus Starkiller. Now that the Vader Datacron is gone, that is how I'm approaching Starkiller. But you got to be careful doing it, and I think the Datacron you choose is key, or it may have just been my opponent last round had great mods on his Starkiller squad, but I've had 3 attempts with Wampa versus Starkiller. I've won 2 out of 3. My opponent, or the Swugga data shows, I forget what the number was, but it's not super safe. It's a little risky, but I had good results. I was thinking that maybe people were failing because they just weren't using a Datacron. I think the difference, though, was the tenacity boost from the Datacron, and you'll see that in the next video, or the previous week video as well, because I have multiple Datacrons for the dot synergy, and I think I chose poorly last time. I went for just extra offensive stats instead of the effect of that tenacity, and I think that it cost me. Because the stagger being applied from Mara Jade really turns that match. If you don't get the protection up, you just die. Now Nest, this is something where, since I already lost the match, I was pretty sure how is this because so because his Maul is so weak, I went with this counter, but I'm not a huge fan of this counter. I think you need to have higher relics on your Nest to go up against some of the better Mauls, but this is a weak Maul. Because what I found with my Nest at Relic 5 is I can't outpace the recovery that Bo-Katan creates. I just don't have the damage output. Now, this was a weak Maul, so that was a non-factor. Now, unfortunately, Sanastaros, I didn't pull Finn off of defense, so I couldn't test out, or not Sana, Zori Bliss. Finn's on defense, so I can't test out Zori. This would have been a good defense to test Zori up against. Oh, yeah, so you could see some damage there. I think there was I just forgot to unpause. Alright, now with Leia here, JML solo? Sure. That'll work. Really wish that Hutt Cartel thing I didn't do, because it would have been interesting to see how close I would have got on banners. I don't think I would have won. That's a really high banner total. I think he had all his GLs. He was going to be able to just boost up a lot of solos onto my defense. It still would have been interesting. Now we got Grievous. How do I want to deal with Grievous? Starkiller? Okay. That's a little risky. Do I really stick with this? Because at least in 5v5, Grievous is a counter. Okay, so I realize the potential error, even though I don't know if that works in 3v3. With the Datacron, my Grand Inquisitor is going to be overpowered. This is going to be a non-issue. I'm taking it slow, focusing on B2 because I don't want a taunt from IG 100, but I got the days now, and now We got Torture on Grievous. I'm hoping with the AoEs we can take out Grievous. Yeah. This is a fun data ground. I wish I would have had more Jedi GLs to test it against in 3v3. You'll see me do it in 5v5. We got a lot of that coming up. What am I going to do? JMK Cat? JMK Solo? Am I that crazy? I might be. That's why it took so long. It was me thinking about it. I was like, did I really want to do it? And I do. Yeah, so Resistance Hero Finn is the one you're going to want to take out because that's how Inspired spreads. Like he gives it to Poe, and then Poe gives it to everyone else. So I want that engine to be eliminated. So once Inspired expires from the rest of these guys, it won't be coming back. I guess Poe can still technically spread it. But Poe's gone. Yeah. I wonder if I put Tenacity on that data crown or not. That would have been a way to play it. And just mitigate some of that expose functionality from Finn. This is a little excessive. With some of those backwall teams available, did I already beat them all? Soft defense. I just trusted those Hutts too much. Yeah, so we blow up Django, move quick. So the big things that are happening within my roster, you saw that in the brackets a little bit, is I've got Jabba now. I'm working towards very quickly unlocking some powerful characters. So Jabba, Afra will be the next one. Afra I expect to have in a week or two more, maybe less. I mean, in a week. Because at this point, I've already halfway farmed Sanastaros because she's on a ridiculously cheap node. Like, a node that cheap is a 2-week farm or less. It's 14 days or less. Because the fifth brother, he was on like a 10 energy node. That was a 17-day farm for me. This is an 8 energy node for Asana. So it's 14 days maximum, maybe less. By the time I have her farmed, I'm also going to have BT1 and 000 farmed. So by the second week of that 5v5 season, that is going to be starting in a day or two, I'm going to have Afra unlocked. Relics are going to be a different thing, but she'll be geared up at gear 11, and we'll see that progress on a week-by-week basis. I'll decide how quickly I want to relic her because I like to showcase on this channel how characters perform at gear 11. So there'll at least be a week of it. Because for us free-to-play players, we might not have the luxury or the option. Like that Jabba, he's at gear 11. I'll probably be taking up to gear 12 for this first week of the 5v5. Just because if I want to unlock Afra on the timeline that I do, I don't have the Kairos necessary to relic Jabba right now. Because if I did that, I would be potentially delaying my Afra unlock by a few days in order to accommodate the Cairo farm that's necessary there. Because I think I have like 600 Kairos right now banked, at least of the Cairo prods, and Afra needs 500 of those. And there's other things I want to do. So the other aspect, we have got the Afra and Jabba portion. The other portion is going to be adding some key relics to certain characters to strengthen squads and allow myself to use certain data grounds. Like my Starkiller, I can't put data grounds on my Starkiller right now because my Visas is at Gear 12. So that's one of those other things. But I'm also holding back on that because, again, I don't have the Kairos to take characters to relics right now. But it's the trade-off that I make with my roster where I go for unlocks first and gearing characters up to at least Gear 11 minimum. Then I worry about the relics. Because that's how I typically beat opponents, is with my depth. But now with how Kyber 2 is looking different, that's not always going to work out for me long term. I need to get a lot stronger in order to handle a lot of... Because that depth advantage is not what it was several months ago and through most of last year. Most opponents have had the time now to get a lot deeper and get a lot more relics, where depth alone is not getting me the holds that it used to get. So datacrons and relics are a heavy focus. You can see me using the scythe here, but I obviously used the wrong capital ship, wasn't paying attention. Just the consequences of being on vacation. But yeah. So it's not a great test of the scythe. I forget if it cost me or not. It may have cost me. Or we might get through this anyway. It is a GL level Raddus. But it looks like we're still making some pretty quick work out of all this. And the scythe is still boosting up these ships a little bit. Just not at the level that it could have. And great. And there's the unbattered total. Maybe I would have had a shot. 2041 to 2065. So what's that? Like another 20 banners if I would have one-shot that Django. So we would have been at like 2061-ish. I think I still would have lost, but it would have been pretty interesting. It would have been a more of a photo finish here. But a very solid show for my opponent's Sony show. Next Grand Arena video I'm going to be putting out probably later this day when I post this video, just because we got Grand Arena starting in another day or two, and these videos got to be out beforehand. And on top of that, there's a number of other videos that I was hoping to put out, but while I was traveling, I did not do the extra work that I thought I was going to do. So sorry about that, but videos are forthcoming now that we are back in home base and can rededicate myself. But thank you for watching. Be safe out there, everyone. Be excellent to each other. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.